Right now, other news today is how they're going through the machinations of preparing for just that wee bit of a possibility they have some discord at the convention. We've already heard Paul Ryan say, do not try to recruit me. Take a look.
I saw Boehner last night, and I told him to knock it off. I used slightly different words. I used his own words that he used to use against us when he told us to knock things off. It's not going to be me. It should be somebody running for president. Look, I made a decision over a year ago not to run for president. I really believe if you want to be president, you should run for president. People are out there campaigning. They're canvassing. There's caucuses and primaries. That's who we should select from among for our next presidents on whatever ballot we're talking about. So let's just put this thing to rest and move on.
All right, but of course it's the same guy who said he had no interest in being Speaker of the House, and he was recruited to do that and ultimately ceded to their demands and ran for that. So could it happen again? Former Governor Tim Pawlenty joins me, also a former presidential candidate. What do you think of that? Could you see a scenario, Governor, where Paul Ryan is the guy they turn to?
No. I think those are wise words by Paul. I think he's assessed it exactly correctly. I think at this stage of the proceedings, if you try to parachute in a third party, notwithstanding the great regard and respect we all have for Speaker Ryan, I think it would be an absolute disaster. I think somebody's either going to have to win it or lose it, but they should not try to manipulate a third person, whoever that person may be, into the convention. You
know, Governor, we talked about it, and Connell was breaking it down for us. I guess Donald Trump would need 53% of the remaining delegates. That seems doable. Can you see him getting to the convention with the 1,237 he would need?
I can, and I think the presentation you just had underscores that. It's not going to be for sure, but it's certainly likely. I think he's on his way to the nomination, Neil, and even if he comes up a little short, I think the convention will probably move towards nominating him.
What's a little short, Governor? Because I've heard, well, if he's within 50, maybe, but if he's 100 or more out, maybe not.
I think inside of 100, if you're just looking for a rule of thumb or a benchmark. Right. But, if he's 100 or inside of 100, I would say, the expectation is going to be that he's the nominee. And if you have a different result, you're going to have a revolution, if not a civil war, if you don't already have one within the Republican Party. Now,
there's just as much a sentiment on the other side, the people who don't flip over Donald Trump, that there are a good many of them, that if it's Donald Trump, you're going to have a revolution there, too. People will say, well, that's it, we're out, we don't want to, we'll sit on our hands. Some of us might vote for Hillary. What do you think?
Well, isn't it interesting, though, when you had all these years where the so-called establishment candidates were successful, and then the call was always to the conservatives or the Tea Party types or the libertarians, hey, you got to join, you got to be unified, you got to come on board. But now, when an outsider gets the nomination, the call comes for the establishment to unify. All of a sudden, there's a double standard, always a double standard. And then one other thing, Neil, the party kind of brought this on itself. I mean, these people run around for a decade or more and say we're going to get spending under control, the debt under control, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, we're going to fix immigration, we're going to have pro-growth tax reform, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to rebuild the military, and none of it really happened. So I think basically a lot of activists just said, I'm so fed up, I just want to get somebody in there who at least has a better chance of getting something done.
That really is a very good point. I mean, conservatives were urged to swallow their pride and support who the mainstream put up, and now when the pressure's on the mainstream, whatever you want to call them, Governor, do the same. I'm going to take that as my own insight and not quote you. Very good, Governor. Thank you very much.
It wouldn't be the first time.
There you go. All right. Well.